Middleweight adventure bikes, in my opinion, are the best all-rounders of the motorcycle market. They're generally quite capable off-road, have enough power to make for good fun on-road, and in the right spec, are well set for touring and distance work too. But who makes, in 2025, the best Swiss Army knife of a motorcycle? Well, here we go, with all of the options from each of the major manufacturers, in price order ascending, with the pros and cons of each of them. So kicking us off at just under $8,000, we've got the 800 MTX from CFMOTO, which is new for 2025. With CFMOTO being close partners with KTM, you're getting a parallel twin that's heavily based upon their 790, and it makes decent power too at 94 horsepower. The chassis is fairly off-road biased, and while the KYB suspension and J-Dwan brakes aren't top-spec exotica, I think for the price, one can hardly argue. Now, being built in China and being built down to a price, there will be questions about its reliability and durability in the long run, but I guess that remains to be seen until they've been on the market for a couple of years. In the meantime, I think it's a great looking bike, and the tech package looks decent too, so we'll definitely look forward to getting one for review. Also hailing from China, and as such offering what looks like exceptional value for money, we've got the 800X Pro from Kove. And again, it uses an engine built around the KTM 790 design, and so you'll get the same horsepower peak. This one is a particularly tall bike at 875mm in the seat, but that does come as a result of plenty of suspension travel and ground clearance. One of the key strengths of this bike, I think it's fair to say, is the weight, with it being perhaps the lightest on this list with a claimed curb weight of 185 kilograms. In reality, with a full tank, I've read it's about 10 kilograms more, but that would still make it 10 kilograms lighter than a Yamaha Ténéré 700, which is, I guess, the benchmark in this class, especially at the more affordable end. If, however, you're after a more established brand name on the tank, then it's only a few £100 more for Suzuki's V-Strom 800. In its base RE spec, you get a road-biased chassis that's a little lower slung with cast wheels, and also you get a touch more wind protection with the touring windscreen too. An extra £1,300 though gets you the DE variant, which is more so built with off-roading in mind, and so suspension travel goes up to 220mm, the wheels are spoked with a 21-inch front, and the paint job's a little more rally-inspired, which I do think helps with the overall look. Both get the excellent new parallel twin from Suzuki, which might not be the most powerful of the bunch at about 80 horsepower, but it is a very pleasant ride with a smooth character and a smooth connection to the throttle. Weight-wise, it is a bit on the hefty side, the DE certainly at 230 kilograms, but if a bit of bulk doesn't necessarily bother you too much, then it's certainly worth a demo. Honda's equivalent would be the 750 Transalp with the same 90 horsepower parallel twin that you'll also find in their Horner Naked. This one isn't as road biased as Suzuki's RE, nor as tall as the DE, but perhaps one could argue it makes for the best balanced all-rounder, and with the extra power and sweet handling, it might be the best of the bunch on tarmac. New for 2025, there's a welcome revision to the headlight, which looks a touch more premium. There's a couple of new colours as well, and they've also tweaked the suspension for better bump absorption off-road and improved response when loaded up with a passenger and/or luggage. Similar money though will get you a KTM 790 Adventure, which is a very tempting proposition indeed. And again, you might have guessed this one makes 94 horsepower peak, it's the same engine design after all. And again, it's fairly off-roady in the chassis spec, but it does have a bit of a USP in that the low-hanging fuel tank at either side of the bike helps to keep the center of mass low, which makes this one perhaps the least intimidating bike on the list so far when riding off-road or at lower speeds. Tech is comprehensive too. The suspension is excellent, of course, from KTM's in-house brand WP, and while KTM are struggling with some severe financial difficulties at the moment, well, if you're willing to take a punt on one, there are some pretty heavy discounts on these at the moment. Further up the lineup, you've also got the 890 Adventure, which is very similar but with more features and more power, or the 890 Adventure R, which is a more aggressive off-roader with top-spec suspension and more of the rally look. Before you buy any of these bikes though, you're probably best taking a demo on a Yamaha Ténéré 700. It might not be the most powerful, in fact it's probably one of the least powerful bikes on this list at 72 horsepower, and it won't have the most fancy technology suite either. But it's been a top seller in this category for a good few years now, and it's very easy to see why when you take one for a spin. It's probably the best adventure bike I've ever ridden off-road, or at least the one I've enjoyed the most anyway. And while the base model is thoroughly decent, if you can stretch to one of the variants with the up-spec'd KYB suspension, I'd certainly recommend it for even better control over rough surfaces. For 2025, they have added a little more tech, which might take away from some of the rugged simplicity that made the original so appealing, but they have fixed some of the vulnerable parts like the exhaust bracket and the side stand kill switch, and they've also taken the chance to tweak the looks too. Over at Moto Guzzi though, we've got a completely different proposition in the form of the V85 TT. I'd say this is much more of a soulful adventure tourer than it is a hardcore rally bike, but it's still worth a look if you like to travel in style. I was lucky enough to ride this one on the press launch a good few years back now, and I really enjoyed the air-cooled V-twin that had just enough power at 80 horses to have some really good fun on the road, and it also packs decent handling too. Then you've got a shaft drive, which is a nice bit of practicality. It gets a decent 23-litre fuel tank as well. And in the cockpit, there's a TFT dash for a touch of modernity, despite the otherwise retro-inspired design. In 2025, there's now a Strada version, which is road bias with cast aluminium wheels, or you've got a travel edition with all the luggage included. And so there should be something to suit all use cases, as long as you're not planning to attempt Dakar. Aprilia's Tuareg 660 perhaps presents a better option if you want to go off-road, especially in the most recent Rally Edition. The base model was already really quite good with oversized spoke wheels, plenty of ground clearance and travel, a good standing position, and their peppy 660 motor. But for this 2025 Rally version, well, they've beefed up the wheels, given it single-rate springs in the suspension, added some extra protection under the belly, and fitted it with an SC Project exhaust system to make it a touch more aggressive and I think worthy of the Rally name. Plus, I think it looks absolutely fantastic in the red, purple and black paint job with the gold fork and the gold wheels and the high front mudguard. Moving up a bit now in terms of capacity though, as we get to the more expensive end of the list, we've got the BMW F900 GS, which underwent a huge overhaul last year. You see, the previous generation F850 GS was a decent bike, but perhaps not outstanding in any one area, and so for 2024, they slimmed it down, they gave it more power, and they revised the ergonomics to make it more conducive to standing up. It's certainly a much more capable off-roader now, but of course that comes with some compromises on the road where it feels less comfortable and a bit less planted. Still, you've always got the F800 GS and the F900 GS Adventure in the lineup, which are both more suited to road riding and touring. A couple of £100 more though gets you into the Triumph Tiger 900 lineup, again with a few nice options to cover different styles of riding. All of them though get their triple-cylinder engine with its unusual firing intervals owing to their unique T-plane crank, and so if you want something with a distinctive feel and sound, then this one definitely stands out against a market almost entirely full of twins, most of them parallel twins as well. That's not to say it's a one-trick pony though. The handling both on and off-road is impressive, and you get a lot of standard equipment and tech bundled into the Pro variants, which isn't always the case, with other manufacturers quoting a low starting price but then charging serious cash for all the accessories and add-ons. I also think the Tiger 900 is a very nice looking bike too, but perhaps it can't quite match, in my opinion, the Husqvarna Norden 901 in that department. This one is built upon the 890 Adventure from KTM, with them being sister companies, but it just gets Husqvarna's more desirable bodywork and paint that I think make for a much better looking bike. Otherwise, it is pretty similar to ride, with the same low-hanging tank idea, the same engine, the WP suspension, and a tech package that gets mostly the same features, albeit reskinned in terms of the visuals on the dash. There is an Expedition variant with more suspension travel and soft luggage thrown in, but for me, I found the standard bike more enjoyable on the road with a bit less weight transfer, and yet still realistically capable enough off-road for most riders. Top of the list though, at just over 15 grand now, it's the DesertX from Ducati. This one also has it nailed in the looks department with a bit of retro inspiration from the Chigee elephant, but it's more than a pretty face with probably the best all-round riding performance on this list that makes it perhaps possible to justify the high price tag. The Testa Stretta L-Twin is versatile and has enough punch, the handling is as good on-road as it is off, and the tech package is thoroughly comprehensive and very easy to use. More money will get you the more aggressive rally variant. There's a Discovery version too with the luggage and touring windscreen, but for me, I think the standard bike is a great starting point, and as I've said a few times in this video, perhaps the balanced best of both worlds. As always though, I'd love to know which bike you'd pick, so do let me know down in the comments below, and I'll leave our full review of the DesertX on the screen now so you can give it a click and give it a watch in case you haven't already. Do hit subscribe if you want to see more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.